part of its contribution. And crucially, the Gulf state of Qatar is also taking part, with 4 Mirage fighter jets. So what is this mission hoping to achieve? Well, its stated aim is to protect Libya's civilians. But is it also to support the rebels against Gaddafi's forces? Or even regime change by another name? Well, America insists not.
Our mission is to protect civilians from attack by the regime ground forces. Our mission is not to support any opposition forces.
So what happens if Colonel Gaddafi remains in place and there's a stalemate?
What the Allied forces have done is step in at the request of the Arab League in order to prevent one particular leader from massacring his own people. Once that has been secured, what happens next is not the problem for the coalition, it's the problem for Libyans themselves and more broadly for the Arab world. And that is when the Arab League will have to step up to the plate, not necessarily the NATO forces or the Americans.
The next few days are likely to see further airstrikes, but much will depend on what Colonel Gaddafi's forces do. Nobody is keen for talk of regime change to unsettle their Arab allies so early on in this mission. Caroline Wyatt, BBC News.
Well, our political editor Nick Robinson is at number 10 for us this evening. Nick, first of all, how difficult is it to have this difference of opinion, seeming difference of opinion, as to whether Colonel Gaddafi is a legal target or not?
It is difficult, but it reflects this. It reflects the fact that the Chief of the Defence Staff, the military, and ministers and the Prime Minister are walking a legal tightrope and also a diplomatic tightrope as this military action increases and accelerates. On the one hand, all of them are desperate to reassure the Arab world, rebels in Libya, people on the Libyan regime, the rest of the community, that this is not Iraq again. This is not about toppling a leader, toppling a regime, and indeed that would be illegal under the UN resolution. On the other hand, they don't want to say to Gaddafi what they'll do, and they want to leave open the possibility that if they can't protect civilians through a no-fly zone, if it is not enough merely to bomb Gaddafi's troops, then yes, it would be possible to target Gaddafi. My understanding, though, tonight is he is not being targeted. It would be legal in certain circumstances to do it, but they don't want to talk about it now because they don't want to give him the propaganda victory of saying that that is what it's all about.
Now, Nick, this military action was largely supported. There was largely a consensus in the Commons today, but presumably the Prime Minister will have an eye as to how long that will last. Is there any sense yet of an exit strategy?
No, he was not really able to tell people there was an end game, and he was honest about that, saying that because it was not like Iraq, because it was not about occupying a country, installing a new government, in a sense, he and no other world leader could do that. The hope, of course, is that Gaddafi will go, that he will be replaced either by the opposition or there'll be a coup. One other possibility being seriously looked at within Whitehall, though, is that the country splits. And the great fear is that it splits with Gaddafi holding on to the tap, literally the tap of water supplies to the big city of Benghazi with 1 million residents, also to power and gas, which is why the next complicated thing that may happen is the need to get him out of that town in order to make sure that he can't strangle the people whose city he didn't manage to flatten.
Okay, Nick Robinson, outside number 10, thank you. And we'll be coming back to the story later in the programme, assessing opinion here of Britain's role in the military action in Libya. So the rest of the day's news now. And the UK's 6 biggest energy suppliers have been accused of not playing it straight with customers by the industry watchdog. Ofgem said it has evidence that the firms increased bills in response to rising fuel costs faster than they reduced them when the costs fell. The watchdog told them to simplify their tariffs and sell off part of their electricity output to allow greater competition. Here's our business correspondent, John Moylan.
They are the big 6 suppliers, the firms that dominate energy in the UK. Now the industry watchdog has found that they failed to play it straight with consumers, that people have been bamboozled by complex and unfair pricing. As a salesman, Bill Bennett knows a thing or two about getting the best deal, but even he finds tariffs baffling.
I definitely pride myself on being both savvy as a consumer and with a commercial background as well. Facts and figures come easily to me. But even with all the figures out there, it's measured in different scales, there's different offers out there, and it's so confusing that it takes ages to actually work out what is the best deal.
What's more, Ofgem says last winter, suppliers raised prices in response to rising costs quicker than they reduced prices when costs fell.
The overall effect is a profound loss of confidence.
Consumers are not switching. We've seen consumer switching decline in gas from 20 to 15%. We've seen the companies lean on their legacy customers to make most of their margin. And we've seen at the same time companies increase the number of tariffs available, almost doubling it.
So the regulator is recommending a shake-up, with simpler tariffs allowing prices to be easily compared. The company's profits and margins will also be examined to improve transparency, and it wants to see more competition with new players entering the market. But the industry insists competition is fierce, with up to 100,000 customers switching supplier every week.
There's about 17 companies in all, and if you shop around, you can get a good deal. We do have one of the most competitive markets for gas and electricity anywhere in the world.
The regulator knows that some £200 billion worth of investment in clean, secure energy will be needed here in the UK over the coming decade. So it matters that the companies are playing it straight with consumers, because we, through our bills, will end up paying for much of that. John Moylan, BBC News in central London.
Time has just gone 6:15. Our top story tonight. As more British jets head for Libya, government sources insist the UN resolution means Gaddafi can be a target if he's a threat to civilians. Coming up, we reveal just how much household incomes have been squeezed over the past 3 years.
Later on business, the energy regulator tells the UK's big six companies they're not being fair on price, and the markets have reacted strongly to intervention in Libya.
In Japan, the situation at the Fukushima nuclear plant appears to be improving slowly. All of the 6 reactors now have a power supply, essential to cool the nuclear reactors. But raised radioactivity levels have again forced workers to withdraw. The World Health Organization says the level of radiation found in some foodstuffs is a lot more serious than first thought. Japanese officials insist they're not dangerous, but residents near the plant have been urged to stop drinking tap water. Well, so far, more than 8,000 people have now been confirmed dead following the earthquake and the tsunami, but some 13,000 are still missing. In the town of Rikuzen Takata, most of the children were in school when the tsunami struck, ensuring they survived, but many of their parents are missing. From there, Damien Grammaticus reports.
When the sea has taken all you know, how do you comprehend it? Every landmark obliterated. So even finding where his home stood isn't easy for 12-year-old Takuma Wagazugi. This is the first time he's been back. But at house number 3 on his street, there's just a void.
My desk was up there. My bed was over here, and this is where my bookshelf was.
This is all his sister, 10-year-old Sayaka, found, her school bag. She used it for trips to the beach with her father.
Because we lived near the sea, I could play there. I would go with Dad. It was fun. When the tsunami came, it was scary, but I like living by the sea.
Her father is missing. He was a rescue worker directing people to safety while his wife and children fled. 500 bodies have been found here so far, but not his.
When the tsunami struck at 2:45 that Friday, most of the adults were here in the middle of town. This is a place of 26,000 people. It's hard to believe it now, but you have to imagine shops and offices, supermarkets and restaurants, all busy. The children, well, they were in schools, and those are built on higher ground to protect them from tsunamis. So most of them survived.
The high school, their place of refuge, is now full of children who are grieving. And for Takuma and Sayaka, it's become their temporary home.
I wish more people were searching for the missing. I hope we'll find Dad alive and well soon. He's a very important member of my family, and I love him a lot.
In the mud and debris, Sayaka discovered something else. A photo of of their father. He was a very good man, her mother says, describing him as the pillar of our family. She went to the morgue today, but still couldn't find his body. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News, Rickards and Takata.